This is a carbon build-up removal test. This is piston number 2. Number 2 on the top. Piston number 3. Same thing. Pretty dirty. Also on the top. I'm gonna put the acetone in one can and xylene or xylene to the other one. It's right here. The whole piston is soaked in. Same for this xylene can. It's right here. I covered every can with a plastic poly because I don't like to smell this nasty stuff here. This is piston number 4. But I wanted to add another one, and what I always liked was Windex spray, like a foam spray. So I used that and I put the piston in the Ziploc, as you see here. It's full of Windex, this bag, and the bag is closed because it's a Ziploc, and you can hear how the Windex works. It's a try. And so right now in my garage is like -12, -13 degrees Celsius, no Fahrenheit, Celsius. This process it's gonna be a little bit different from the room temperature, or if you do it in the summertime. 3 hours later, I'm back. I'm very curious what happened to my pistons. Oh, piston soaked with Windex. It's frozen because it's -15 in my garage. I'm gonna give it a hot soak. Good. And now I'm gonna use the brass brush. It's going pretty well actually, considering it was here sitting 3 hours in -15. I'm pretty impressed. It's just Windex. When I use this brush on the sides, it's a miracle for the cheap Windex. Yeah, I'm really impressed. I'm gonna open up Xylene version. You did see how it looked like before and now. It's still looking pretty dirty. And gonna try to do some stuff on the top. Windex got it a little bit better. So if you compare those two, it's still dirty, this piston on the right hand side. The big surprise, acetone piston. So I'm gonna show you the top. There is a little shiny spot here. What about the sides? Same way. Yeah, the acetone can work on this oil sludge spot. Same as Xylene, same as Windex. Compare those 3 pistons here. This Windex piston looks way better than the acetone or xylene pistons. This is an acetone piston. And the xylene. These 2 pistons, they look pretty much the same. Acetone probably a little better. This is a xylene can. This is acetone. Xylene is a little bit lighter color, so I think acetone works a little bit better. Acetone piston back to the acetone can. Xylene piston into my xylene can. I'm not sure about this one, if I should soak it one more time or not. regular Windex. Shake it, shake it. Oops, my Windex probably is frozen. Just like that. I'm gonna let it sit like that. So I'm not gonna use this Ziploc. 2 hours later, I am back with my gloves. -15 garage, and let's get this fella out of the box first. This is a frozen crust. This is not a foam anymore. Hot water. Yeah, the question is if the Windex could work really if it's so cold. This piston now looks way better than 2 hours ago, just looking at it. As far as I can see, Windex is really good working on this ugly stuff here. It's a very big surprise for me. Like, Windex is #1. It's looking pretty shiny, doesn't it? Alright, 2 hours later, still black. If I brush it, it's not really coming off. A little bit, not too much. This is a hot water, let it soak. And this is the top of the piston. Let's check out the acetone. There is almost the same on the sides. It's a little bit better than the Xylene. And wash it off in the water. Not too much progress. So for Xylene and acetone, so I'm gonna pour Marble Mystery Oil So I'm gonna mix it a little bit together. There were 3 plus 2 hours for all 3 of them. 24 hours is in the books for xylene and acetone mix. This xylene guy did a little bit of a progress, but not that much. Same on the side of the piston. I expected something different after 24 hours, but honestly, in -15, nobody wants to work really, right? Not even these chemicals. We'll see what happened to our acetone guy. It's almost the same. Actually, a little better. It looks better. I agree, yeah. It needs a manual agitation. Oh yeah, absolutely. So Marble Mystery Oil in last 19 hours with acetone works better than Marble Mystery Oil with xylene in last 19 hours. And first 5 hours was just pure acetone and pure xylene. This is the piston treated by Windex. It is looking better than the acetone version after 24 hours. I'm in the basement now, so it's not -15 here anymore. And these are the 4 mushrooms I just sprayed with the Windex. And look at the reaction, it's amazing. I'm gonna wait hour and a half or 2. This is how it looks like after hour and a half, roughly. This is the piston I treated with Windex before. This one and across the other one, I never touched those pistons with anything. And I used Varsol on this piston with ATF fluid before, so this one looks a little bit different because of that. The foam is gone. I probably should agitate this surface when the foam is activated. It needs a little bit more pressure to get it off. This piston, it's easy to get rid of those little leftovers. And the piston here feels pretty hard now. It's interesting because in the garage there was the foam from Windex was almost instantly frozen, but also was still there. It didn't disappear, didn't evaporate. So I'm gonna spray foam on the piston. I'm gonna put in the Ziploc. This is my piston right now, so it's in the Ziploc. Approximately 2 hours later, I'm back, and I'm gonna take this Ziploc now. I can tell this is a hell of a difference. So when the foam stays in there, it still has the cleaning effect. It's easy to get this carbon out actually. I don't have to really push hard. There is a difference, and I can tell that I didn't have to apply too much pressure to get rid of the carbon, so plastic bag worked really well. If the Windex freezes, it stays as a crust on top of the piston or on top of whatever you want to clean, and it still actually acts like a solvent. In this case, in the above zero temperatures, it just evaporates into the air. So whatever this Windex contains helps to solve this problem with carbon when it stays in the freezing condition, or if you apply it and agitate it right away when it actually is still active. My last try will be to bring this one of those pistons back to garage and apply the Windex one more time, and I let it freeze, and I will come back in another hour or so. Here I am back in my garage, -15. So let's take a closer look, and we'll give it a try with the Windex in those cold conditions here. I'm gonna spray it all over. I'll try to put it into this Ziploc. I'm gonna help it a little bit here. This is how it looks like from the top. Should freeze in a minute. This is a final test. Our flushing test. Actually, first I'm gonna try to agitate it with my brush. Nothing is coming off, ladies and gentlemen. But what happens when I pour hot water all over this piston? That makes a huge difference. Oh yeah. It's way easier to get it off with hot water just from the sink. It wasn't boiling water. Temperature is a huge factor here. I think it works. These look pretty nasty. A little flash. I think that's a huge difference here. And I'm very happy with it. Xylene piston and the acetone piston. They're pretty much 48 hours in this can. I feel that the carbon is not going off at all. I don't think it works. Not with this piston at all. Acetone piston is actually acetone and MMO, same as xylene and MMO. Oh, this looks a little better. I think acetone should work better at the room temperature, or maybe even the xylene. Not bad, but also I'm not impressed. So this is my Windex piston compared to this is my acetone, but acetone piston spent way too more time in that soak. My xylene piston. So number 1 Windex, number 2 acetone, number 3 xylene. I have all pistons lined up here on my bench. This piston was treated by acetone. This piston was treated by xylene. This is a Windex piston, also this piston right beside him, but I started with this piston in my minus 15 degree garage, minus 15 degree Celsius, not Fahrenheit. Another piston here, I finish it up with Windex as well. And this piston, I didn't show you this in this video at the beginning, but I was trying to use Varsol with ATF fluid, and Varsol did pretty much nothing. It can actually clean all this oil sludge, not too bad, but not a carbon buildup. And those two last pistons, I left those two untouched in my basement, and I treated with Windex only, just for a very short time. And what I did was, the first day I sprayed the Windex all over. I let it sit for an hour or hour and a half. In my basement the Windex disappeared, so I wasn't able to get that carbon off of the top of the piston or even from the side of these pistons. And I sprayed the Windex all over again, and I lock it up. Actually I put it into the Ziploc. So after that I try to agitate the carbon off of the top of the piston. I start pouring hot water from my sink all over. Then it was basically like from second to second doing miracles. The carbon started melted down, and when I touch it with my brush, it was basically no problem to get it off. This is my final test. So let's start with the number 1, number 2, number 5, number 6. Can you hear the foam working? Because it's working. So I'm gonna try to agitate the surface of the piston when the foam is actually active and working. So this is piston number 1, or acetone/MMO piston. Look at the difference. You see it? It was just a very short try. So let's get to the piston number 2. This is a Xylene piston. To be fair, I should have sprayed a foam on each piston just before I'm doing this, but okay, let's wash it off. I think we can see some difference here. The piston number 5. Wash it off. Yeah, it was just very short brushing, right? But you can see the difference. Let's get here a little bit of help, a fresh help. Let it work for a few seconds here. And we can start agitate the dirt on top of the piston. Alright, so let's give it a wash. And I think this looks better again. This short test is clearly showing that Windex does a good job. It just does. This is my final product. Piston cleaned for the first piston ring groove. And also you can see the light from there. These grooves are pretty clean now too. They're pretty huge actually. And what I did to clean the piston grooves, I used the piston ring and I broke it, and I used the original end, so not the end you broke, but the other end. So I put it in there, apply the pressure, and I pull it. Put it in there, apply the pressure, and pull it. You don't have to be too hard on it. Just do a couple times with a little bit less pressure than one and a big pressure. Even if you don't put your other finger on top of the piston ring, you just pull it just like that. It goes off. Don't be too hard. It goes off. So I use the short piece because I broke it kind of like this way on purpose. You can use the longer piece as well. Just be careful of this sharp edge here, and it's actually easier to manage the angle, but also it's easier probably if you have a leverage, better leverage on the piston ring to go a little bit sideways. So I didn't use this big piece, but I switched to the small one. And then when I did, I sprayed with Windex, and I used this toothbrush to get inside those grooves. It's pretty foamy, I like it. Then you wash it in the hot water, ideally hot water. That's basically it. Don't forget to clean these oil grooves or holes for the oil, and then use the compressed air to blow everything off. This is how the piston look like. There are a couple spots here and there, right? But you got an idea. It's just Windex.
At the end, I want to say just again, use your common sense, use SDS, safety data sheets. It's all chemicals, usually flammable, so you don't get hurt or you don't get any damage. Use them in very well ventilated area. I made another video especially about properties of all these chemicals I used, so don't be afraid and click on the link and enjoy it.